Everyone focuses on halting hair loss or stopping further balding, but in the grand scheme of things, causing the actual remission of androgenic alopecia should be the priority. I am AQBS, and this is Back to the Barber. When we hear the word remission, what usually comes to mind is cancer. But remission is not just about cancer. It can also be used to describe the slow reversing of any ailment or disease. As a matter of fact, remission is actually defined as a diminution of the seriousness or intensity of disease or pain. Simply put, the severeness of said issue is lessening. Hair loss is no different. When we reverse the deteriorating conditions of our scalp environment while targeting and eliminating the root trigger, we are basically putting androgenic alopecia or male pattern balding in remission. Hair loss is conditional, not guaranteed. Genes allow for the severity of the immune reaction, not the promise that it will. Hair loss is not inevitable, nor is it irreversible. Unfortunately, it seems that way because 90% of the material that we consume in the hair loss sphere is about halting hair loss or stopping further hair loss. There's value there. However, it is very, very infrequent or rare to come across material that states, explains, or proclaims that we can not only halt hair loss, but to regrow hair from non-hair producing follicles once again. If your protocol or regimen allows you to keep the hair that you have, good for you, because at least it's not getting worse. However, in the ideal world, your protocol or regimen stack should actually help to reactivate dormant hair follicles that went comatose due to the past conditions of the scalp. Hair regrowth, when conditions are normalized, is automated and involuntary by the body. So if dormant follicles are not being reactivated, there is something amiss in your regimen, respectively. If you are simply keeping the current follicles out of decline, you will find that your current terminal hairs will indeed get thicker, and you may not have hair in the bathroom sink after brushing. The bottom of the shower will not be littered with lost hair, nor will your brush be filled with them. You may even look good in certain light, but the truth of the matter is, you are not just static, but stagnant. The thing about taking DHT blockers and using topical vasodilators as your primary protocol stack is that they are only good at keeping the status quo. We are almost conditioned to accept that this is the best that we can do. As stated, the current terminal hairs may get thicker. Your working follicles will stay in the anagen state longer. The hair that you have will appear denser as long as you continue the regimen. However, those thicker hairs that has never went comatose are covering or shielding the hundreds, if not thousands of follicles hidden amongst them that are producing miniaturized hairs or none at all. This is why many of the hair loss commentators and gurus wear non-aesthetic hairstyles that really don't fit them too well, even when they have hair transplants. You ever notice that? This is not their preferred look, nor is it their favorite. This is the best that they can do because they simply halted hair loss. They did not put it into remission. Being forced to wear a hairstyle just to cover hair loss or to make it appear denser is no different than wearing a bald head because the top will not grow. Earlier I mentioned how androgenic alopecia and male pattern balding is conditional. What this means is, although there is a quote-unquote genetic component that increases or decreases your chances of experiencing hair loss, it is still dependent on the conditions of your body and scalp. So if you live in an ideal environment or live an ideal lifestyle, or at least actively avoid the triggers of your personal hair loss, then the likelihood of it occurring will be unlikely. This is highly dependent on how much inflammation, infection, and irritation occurring in the scalp. DHT being concentrated in the scalp due to the pathogen or protein being present and inflaming the once more balanced environment is one of the main causes of acute follicle stress, which then leads to terminal hairs being aborted by the feminine follicles. Although hair loss is something we all want to avoid, it is but an omen of a greater systematic issue. The safest bet in hair loss is to view it as an omen of a greater problem. Therefore, if hair loss is manifesting on the scalp, then more than likely it is manifesting within the body. Also, if you are seeing fibrosis and calcification on the scalp, you can be rest assured that more than likely it is not the only place that has that accumulation. If what I'm saying is true, simply halting hair loss or its symptoms is not only the riskiest path to take, but it also could be potentially dangerous. You want to put androgenic alopecia in remission, not just because of hair aesthetics, but because of the other organs that may be affected by this same overarching problem. Now that we are aware of the importance of remission versus halting, the signs of remission that you should see or experience in your protocol or regimen is as follows. Over time, you should see the calcification and fibrosis on your scalp lessen. Consider fibrosis as skin layers that become thickened as the body attempts to overcompensate for the inflammation and irritation. These thick and shiny skin layers block the natural circulation and almost smother the follicles, creating a micro blood flow issue. Fibrosis is also the exchanging of soft tissue for hardened tissue. It is similar to how bread is overbaked in the oven. Calcification is similar to the sludge that you would see if you ever witnessed city workers fixing a large water pipe underneath the ground. The pipe itself has a ring of metals and other sludge in it, constricting the flow of water. These materials show up in our drinking water, causing it to have a rustic appearance at times. Ironically, this hard water also contributes to hair loss. As far as the water pipe analogy, eventually it would have to be replaced and or cleaned, or the water flow would stop. The same with the follicles. Once calcification hits a certain threshold, everything that once was wet, supple, and flowing becomes dried up. This is one of the main side effects of DHT. It single-handedly seems to dehydrate and or strip the subcutaneous fat from the layer of the scalp that is used as a resource reservoir by the follicles. When this layer becomes compromised, so does hair growth. Micro-injury and micro-puncture using simple tools such as the dermastamp and a derma roller should begin loosening or breaking up the collagen bonds and overproduction of skin cells. Scalp massagers, especially with the red light, assist with this as well. As these tools are regularly used, the muscles in the scalp would also have less tension, less pulling due to the fact that the skin layers are softer and more malleable, thus less tug of war between the frontal muscles and the rear. The less mechanical tension that you have, the lower the amount of DHT that will be concentrated in the scalp as well too. When you have less fibrosis and calcification, your circulation and vasodilation would be that much better, almost magnified tenfold, because the calcification and fibrosis of the arteries and the vessels is what causes the blood and oxygen or nutreo-oxygenic flow to be compromised. Think main water line clearing, and also think vasodilation and circulation on the follicular level, the micro level. Many people fight against this circulation theory because they cannot imagine how it works. They state that if there is no circulation, then the scalp should deteriorate, which is true, but they are thinking about the overall circulation of the head. In hair loss, it's better to think about the microvasodilation of the follicles themselves. The follicles act as if they are straws, extracting nutrients from the scalp environment itself. When that environment becomes hardened or the subcutaneous fat which is a resource that extracts the nutrients and oxygen from, is hardened and or stripped away via the steroid DHT, then the follicles themselves starve. This is why the focus has always been on stimulation and circulation, and rightfully so, despite the reservations of many hair loss commentators. Another remission sign is you should also see the greasy sebum overlay beginning to disappear as the overproduction of oil grinds to a halt. This overproduction of oil phenomenon happens as the body is attempting to deal with the inflammation and infection. The oil is kind of like the body creating a natural cortisone cream to lay on top of the follicles to assist with the healing process. If you ever notice a person with a lot of acne, they usually have oily skin. Unfortunately, the oil is causing more acne, while the inflammation of the face and the skin is causing the oil pores to produce more oil. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more oil that you have, the more acne. The more acne and inflammation that you have, the more oil is produced. This is the answer you've been looking for as far as balding men with very shiny scalps. Pay attention to the scalps of non-balding people. It seems more dry than greasy. Where there is an overproduction of sebum, dandruff, or oil, there is hair loss or thinning on the horizon. As you use the derma roller and stamp to fix the inflammation underneath the outer layer of the scalp, you will notice that the oil production will slow down. This is facts because even as of now, I am still regrowing hair, and the many areas of my head that are now covered with villus hair, non-terminal, no longer have the tight, bald, oily scalp look. When I saw that disappear over time, it solidified that the overproduction of oil was due to inflammation, infection, and irritation. If your regimen and or protocol is causing the remission of androgenic alopecia, where there is shine, there is fibrosis. And where there is fibrosis, there are follicles succumbing to the telogen comatose state. Simply put, shine equates to hair loss. If your regimen or protocol is causing the remission of androgenic alopecia, the symptoms of hair loss that are similar to scalp infection symptoms should also cease or begin to go away, such as the pain or the tenderness, along with the reddening of the scalp, acne. Those things seemingly coexist with balding. It is, in my opinion, that you have to treat male pattern balding as a scalp infection topically. This is not a new theory. If you read between the lines, the same individuals who state this is truly a rogue androgen attacking the hair follicles because it's genetically programmed to do so, which is even wild for bro scientist standards, they still use medicated shampoos and conditioners ironically. Why use Nizoral or medicated shampoos if we are dealing strictly with genetics? Therefore, if your protocol is working, it needs to deal with the fact that you have a scalp infection that is causing an immune response. If you find that you're having less reddening, less tenderness, less oil and dandruff, less acne and bumps, then you know your protocol is working. Anything less than this is just halting hair loss or keeping you in this cycle. If your protocol is causing the remission of androgenic alopecia or male pattern balding, you should start seeing villus hairs appear in areas that used to be bald. This is the main visual confirmation that your protocol is actually doing more than just halting hair loss, but causing a remission of this scalp follicle disease. The villus hairs are telling you that follicles are now producing an egg and they are awaiting for the androgens to impregnate them, or at least activate them, so that they can begin to nurture this new baby terminal hair. Without new hairs popping up randomly, especially around the edges of your scalp, then you do not have a protocol or regimen that's actually building new hair within the scalp. Simply put, your hair will not get that much fuller on the top of your head because the only hairs that are becoming thick are the current ones, while the other follicles are still in the inactive telogen comatose state. And the more follicles going telogen, the snowball effect will happen, thus compounding. Balding becomes faster and more severe. The villous hairs that you will see appear around the edges or frontal should visually tell you that the hairs in other areas of the scalp are also moving out of the telogen state back to anagen finally. Keep in mind that if you're struggling from androgenic alopecia, current healthy terminal hairs will one day fall out. Yes, those hairs nurtured by minoxidil and finasteride are going to be replaced by a smaller hair perhaps. The villous hair's appearance not only guarantees that you are going in the right direction, it signifies that the overall environment will be supportive when those current hairs grow through the 3 or 7-year cycle to be replaced. The last sign of remission you should have is the aesthetic change. If you find yourself on a topical or internal, natty or synthetic lab-based therapeutic, and your appearance is not changing for the better hair-wise, then your protocol is not working efficiently. It is static and stagnant. You should find that if your protocol is sending the Norwood Reaper and male pattern balding in remission, you should begin to look fuller with current healthy hairs, not only in the thick part of your scalp, but also the struggling hairline or temples. Your aesthetic should be changing for the better and your hairline should age regress. If you are static or stagnant or slowly getting worse, your protocol needs an update or overhaul. Remission is the key, not just halting hair loss, as time would almost guarantee what is working now will no longer be viable. If you want to place male pattern balding in remission and defeat hair loss, you truly have to deal with the 4 pathways of hair loss, which is immune response, hormonal imbalance, vasodilation and circulation, and lastly, the mechanical physical changes that occur. Your regimen needs to have a topical solution, internal solution, and tools that help you walk each of them back to an ideal state as close to omega as possible. The better the conditions are, or the more normalized that they are, the quicker and easier it is for your follicles to begin the hair manufacturing process once again. Your scalp wants hair. It needs you to allow it to do so. So that's my video for today. Let me know how you plan to put your hair loss in remission or any other helpful comments. Iron sharpens iron, and we only have each other. And remember, if I can do it, you all can do it too. Let's get you back to the barber.